Terrifier 2 is an unrelenting symphony of slasher movie decadence. Art the Clown is back, and by God, he's going to enjoy his Halloween no matter how many naysayers get in his way. Today we'll review the film, and I can't believe I'm saying this, give our theories on the seemingly in-depth mythology of Terrifier. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim. Always without the audio for the hello.
Yeah, but it's relevant in this case.
Yes, we're a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about horror films, and of course, as that little tease would indicate, we are talking about Terrifier 2 today. Finally, it's time. I actually saw half of this in the theatre in mid-October, and then because I was jet lagged, fell asleep and didn't see the back half of it. So, not that we would have reviewed it then anyway, because Tim didn't get a chance to see it till now. So the review didn't get delayed, but I was annoyed because I was enjoying the film, and I would have liked to have seen all of it in the theatre, but hey.
Yeah, I kept wanting to go out to the theater, and I like that the movie, it keeps making more money, so it keeps extending the stay, because it's supposed to be like one weekend only, and then it just keeps making more and more money, which is great. It's a nice little success story, but man, that runtime just always kept putting me off. Like, I'm already so tired, and then the idea of like, if I go, it's probably going to be late, and I don't know, like seeing, something like, with this length at like 10:30 or whatever does not sound like a good idea.
Surprisingly long for a film of its type, which we'll get into that. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. As you were just saying there, it has kept extending its run, and it actually just crossed this past weekend, $10 million at the box office. Yeah. And I think its budget was something silly, like
it's like less than $1 million, I believe.
Oh, it was way less. It may have been like under 100,000. Like, yeah, we are silly low budget here for this,
and I mean, we'll get into it more later. But considering the budget, I mean, I think this movie looks fantastic, and like it, there really is no reason, like when you watch some of these like, straight to streaming movies that just look horrible, like there's no reason that it has to be that way.
No, I mean, I bring this up a lot. I was actually starting to worry that the age of good low budget movies was done, because like so many classic horror films were low budget, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, like so many of them are tiny budgets. Even in the day, if you adjust for inflation, they're a bit more now, but not much. But yeah, it's nice for another film to come out, because it doesn't matter that it's cheap. You can still make it look good if you have the people who care about it to make it look good. So all of you Netflix movies and other services that produce the same cheap looking crap over and over again, you're on blast, because Terrifier 2 just ate your lunch and shat all over your face. So
and obviously that's like the big example, because the budget is so low. But I mean, this year has been a great year for like low budget horror movies like X and Pearl. Like they had higher budgets, but they still weren't that expensive. And I'm not sure what the budget on Barbarian was, but I can't imagine it was that much.
I think they were all still in the millions though, because even in the millions you're still low budget these days, whereas this was this was tiny budget by comparison. So we'll get into everything. We'll give our thoughts, and we'll warn you before we go into spoilers, and our discussion, which will obviously be about the usual things you expect in a slasher movie, which is, is it good? Are the kills good? The gore, the scares, the characters, and perhaps what I wasn't expecting coming into this movie was a discussion on the mythology and what is going, because there's a lot more to this than the first one, I will say.
Absolutely.
As far as that stuff goes, so we'll get into all that good stuff. But Art the Clown is the killer from Terrifier. He first appeared in a couple of short films, I think, and then he was in the final segment of All Hallows Eve, which we have reviewed on Screams, which we weren't too fond of that movie overall. Obviously it was nice to see the original art like segment at the end, but other than that it wasn't that great. But Terrifier,
we both did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where we point out the screen and we said that's art.
That what's funny is that I'm pretty sure that was before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, so I mean
Yeah, well, I'm making a joke. You don't have to dissect it like it's the goddamn Bible or something.
What? Who's dissecting? Well, some people are, but you know what? Whatever, right? But we both love Terrifier. Terrifier was a great little slasher film that we didn't see when it first came out. We saw it like 2 years later. I think we saw it in like 2018. We went back and did it during October season, and we were excited.
It was a great like 80-something minute movie.
Yeah, it was about 90 minutes, yeah. And then this is Terrifier 2. We've been looking forward to this. I'd been kind of hyped for it. And Art the Clown is a very brutal slasher, but he's also a slasher with a personality who seems to enjoy what he does. He never speaks, but he's always smiling, he's always laughing. He's always, you know, he's passionate about his work, and I can always get behind that.
I actually do like when he's, you know, doing gags. I do find it kind of endearing. Like, I'm usually not a big fan of, like, you know, when the monsters or whatever are trying to be funny. I feel like it usually doesn't work. But I don't know. I think Art is actually pretty funny in some cases.
Art can be funny. I actually tweeted a moment that made me laugh quite a bit earlier. So I'll be pointing that out later when we get into spoilers. But Tim.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the premise of this is that Art's back and he's killing people a year later.
Right.
The main character is a teenage girl with a sort of troubled family right now, and we'll get into that properly later. That's basically it. I don't really want to give anything else away. Tim, what did you think of Terrifier 2?
So I'll have to divorce the viewing experience from the actual movie, because if I have to take into account the screen box, which I'm sorely disappointed in. I hope they get their shit together, because I really do hope that they are like, you know, this alternative, you know, the Hulu to Shudder's Netflix. You know, like, I hope that it's a viable streaming service that we can both have, and it's pretty cheap too. Like, I got like $14 for 6 months or whatever. So you know, it's a great price point. So I hope that they can get their shit together, and that they have lots of great movies, and then, you know, we can call each other up on the phone and say, like, did you see what's on Screenbox? Yeah, and whatever. So I'm
calling
really
each other up on the phone. What decade are you living
in? So yeah, so I'm sorely disappointed with that. So that being said, the actual movie, again, I'm gonna have to kind of form my thoughts now, because I haven't really had, you know, a lot of time to think about it. But I think I was thoroughly enjoying it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So, you know, the big thing with, you know, the first Terrifier movie that really stood out about it is just how grisly, how gory, how messy and violent it was. Like, you know, Art is, I mean, even
subjective. Oh, you mean the killer? Sorry, on you go.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, you know, compared to even other, you know, like franchise killers like Jason or something, like he seems mildly tamed. You know, when, you know, you have other like slashers that are just stabbing people, and Art is like exploding their heads and ripping skin off and eating them, and like, you know, all this crazy stuff. But so if you're, which obviously I can see that, you know, putting off some people, but if you're, you know, a big horror fan and you love gore, and you kind of, maybe you don't necessarily like always want to seek out something that's on the sleazier, you know, more depraved side, but every now and again it's fun to watch something that's just so unrelentingly nasty, and I think this really delivers. I don't think it's without its faults. I do think the long runtime is not necessarily needed. Like, I think it's totally fine to inject more, you know, in the sequel. And you know, 'cause the first one is rather, I feel like, without a story, which it doesn't necessarily need to be. Like, you know, you can just have a movie that's just, you know, killer, you know, running after people. That's fine. But this one, it does actually, you know, try to endear you more to characters, and, you know, get inside their head a little bit more. And like you were alluding to, possibly adding some mythology, although I have, I would say it raises a lot of questions without necessarily giving any answers. But
I've got theories, Tim. Don't you worry. I'm coming in with the barrels loaded. Don't you worry.
I have a few myself, so I think that will definitely be really interesting to discuss. But so yeah, I think maybe the big thing is that I would say it needs to be trimmed down a little bit, but I'm still okay with it being longer than the typical 90-minute fare. Like maybe just about like 2 hours would have been a little better.
I would probably agree that you could probably just not even cut any like whole bits or scenes, but just shave off things a little here or there to get it down to about 2 hours. You could probably do that, I think.
Seems about right. But yeah, I mean, other than that, though, no, I was pleasantly happy with it.
Yeah, I love Terrifier too. I love so many things about it. I love how brutal art is. He actually, he tops himself in the first film, which is very impressive. There's a particular kill in this, and Tim will probably know what I'm talking about when I say it, that kept getting so nasty and kept going on much longer than I thought it would, that I was laughing hysterically the first time I saw it. Like I like, it was just absurd, where I almost wanted to yell, "They're already dead, Art. They're already dead," and it just kept going. And so like I love that side of Art. I love the sense of humor with them. I love that it's got this dark, funny quality to it. But what the first movie does, or this movie does, sorry, the first one didn't, is that it kind of gives us more of a main character to maybe get behind. I think the film does a lot of smart things on a meta level that I'll talk about in spoilers. I can't really discuss it here. But I love how the film looks. I love that it goes for this kind of grainy sort of aesthetic. It's still set, well, not quite present day, because I think it's just a year after the first one, so presumably it's like 2017 or something like that. But but the smart
people have smartphones.
Yeah,
and stuff,
the smartphones. It's still the modern world, but it still looks like an 80s movie, and I kind of love that. I'm like, yeah, movies can do this. You don't have to be set in the 80s to just give it that visual style. Like, that's okay.
Exactly.
And I kind of love that. So yeah, and the music's great. I love the synth music. Like, I found myself getting into a lot of the music as it was playing. There's a good opening title sequence that was kind of setting me up for some of the stuff to come. Yeah, I kind of loved it. I have many positive things to say. I mean, is it a little bit too long? Yeah, it probably is. You could probably trim it down to about 2 hours without losing too much. But I do think that what it tries to do on top of just having the good art stuff is quite commendable, and I think sets it up for an interesting possible part 3, which we'll, I'm sure, discuss by the end as well. So, no, interesting stuff. I mean, there's a little bit of weaker acting from some of the side characters, but it never took me out of the movie though, because it kind of fit the tone bizarrely.
Yeah, and I generally liked most of the characters.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
That's why I think especially the main character I thought was like a good lead.
Yeah, Sienna's a good character. Her little brother's kind of a dodgy actor, but I thought he, like, for some reason I still kind of liked it though. It was kind of like that.
It does kind of feel like, I mean, I haven't really read any like interviews or podcast or listened to podcasts or anything with like the writer director, but I feel like you can get a pretty big sense that this guy has got to be like a huge horror fan, because everything just feels like, as much as it is its own thing, it also does feel just kind of like a love letter to the kind of like slasher movies that we grew up on.
Yeah, I've been seeing various things from Twitter in the last like week or so where Mike Flanagan was praising the film and giving it a shout out, and it's just
Stephen
stuff like
King,
that.
mentioned it as well. He's a fan.
I think part of the reasons why like I find it so refreshing as well is it doesn't look like other movies that are coming out right now, and certainly so much of horror right now is supernatural. So, something's haunted or someone's possessed. I kind of love that this is not a ghost. It's none of that shit. It is just a brutal slasher villain. Like, and maybe it's because I prefer slasher as a subgenre overall, but because we have been so dry in that area, I think Terrifier just feels like such a nice treat. Obviously, we got the return of some franchises recently, but they've not all been, returns to form, you might say.
Yeah. I am a big fan of like supernatural, demon-y, ghosty stuff, but I feel like that's one that's not done well very often.
Yeah, and even if it was, there's still, even if it is your favorite, like there's still a thing as too much dessert,
overload.
Yeah. So it's nice to have the different horror subgenres, having a presence, and
that would be interesting. Like, I mean, maybe we can do like a bonus. Little mini bonus episode on the Patreon or something, but that might be an interesting discussion to kind of look at the state of like certain subgenres and see like you know like if if we've gotten any good ones recently, or if like we think there might be some on the rise or coming back or something. I don't know.
No, it's an interesting thing to think about. Is are vampire movies kind of like a happening or dead, or zombie movies happening? That kind of subject. It's it's interesting.
Actually, well, yeah, because you mentioned that. I forget where I heard it from before, but I think I heard someone say something along the lines of like, I don't know if I'm gonna get it mixed up, but like I think someone alluded to like, oh, like when Democrats are in office, like vampire movies are big, and then like when Republicans are in office, like zombie movies are big or something like that. Like I don't know if that's true.
Someone can go back and study those 4 and 8 year periods and see if that tracks. I don't know.
Yeah. I think and again, I forget who said this, but I think the point that they're trying to say is like, Republicans are kind of like brainless people that just follow the whatever, and like Democrats are like, like to bleed you dry or whatever, which, obviously these aren't my beliefs. I'm just, quoting a person who I think said something along those lines, but I could be mixing it up. But it's interesting if that is true, if there is like a correlation between that.
I'm glad you brought up the thing you're not entirely sure if it was accurate or was ever said at all.
Someone, I just like to bring up stuff and then have smarter people than me, verify it.
You can just say me, Tim. You can just say Peter verifies things. That's okay.
Well, I mean, you weren't stepping in there to correct me, so I don't know how trustworthy that is. And now you're like leaving to go, I don't know, open an encyclopedia or something.
Firefly called you an encyclopedia. So, but yeah, no, I think Terrifier was a refreshing experience, the first movie when I saw it, and I wasn't super into All Hallows Eve, although I am going to bring it up later when I'm talking about the mythology, because I actually think it starts in that. Okay. But yeah, that's like
I don't even remember All Hallows Eve at all. Is it All Hallows Eve or just Hallows Eve?
I think it's just All Hallows Eve. Okay.
So I did watch the first Terrifier like a few days before watching this to prep, so still fun. It's still a good movie.
Yeah, I loved the first Terrifier as well when I saw it. This definitely adds a lot more of everything though, and definitely puts a new little twist on things just to make it feel fresh again, which does make me fascinated, because when I saw it in the theater, and I did miss the second half, but I did wake up during the credits, and after the credits there was like a little interview segment kind of thing with the director talking about the future that and it did kind of sound like there's like he's got it in his head what 3 will be and what the mythology and where it's going and all that stuff is.
At this point, like the fact that it's like made so much more like over his budget, like I feel like the third one has to be like they'd be stupid not to.
I imagine it will be quicker than the 6 years it took to be made. I feel like it'll be a bit quicker.
6 years. It doesn't feel like that long.
I mean, part of it would be the the pandemic did slow it down, because they were shooting at the start of the pandemic, and I actually got a little bit of other trivia based on that later, but so that kind of delayed things as well. And obviously it's one thing to mention as well is I'm sure there may be a little bit of CG here or there, but it's mostly practical effects. It's it's prosthetics, it's makeup. There's even an animatronic at one point. There's all sorts of gnarly things.
It looks great. I mean, like sometimes it does look like very, like he'll be ripping into like a person's body and it does look very obviously fake. But again, that's all kind of like part of the charm of it. Like
I'd say it looks fake, but not bad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's kind of a weird distinction to give it, but it kind of fills that very kind of charming horror movie line, I think.
I think I heard like someone on a podcast like refer to it as like it looks like everyone's body is just made up of a bunch of chili, which like really made me laugh. Like, which I mean I don't necessarily disagree with, but I mean I don't think it's an insult though. Like I think it does look good, and it actually does like a lot of the kind of like the blood and the insides that they're pulling out, like it doesn't look like other like intestines or something that you see in other movies. Like they're like even that stuff, it does seem like kind of sloppier and messier than other things you'll see.
Yeah, no, it looks good though, and I enjoy all the murder scenes as a result. You mix that with Art's performance, where he's reacting to his own work, and you're in for a fun time, pretty much. So,
is it the same guy that did it in this one, or?
Yeah, same actor in the two movies. It was a different actor before that.
Oh, okay.
But it was the same actor in the two movies, and he is definitely the best at it. Like like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, he's great. Like, especially like selling, all like the silent kind of mime gimmicks and stuff. Like he does a really good job.
Yeah, the way he just looks at people or waves or smiles or he's kind of got that weird smile most of the time, but then every so often when he takes it away and he looks angry, it's like, oh no, shit. Like he's always happy. And sure, he does a lot of nasty things when he's happy anyway, but like what's he going to do when he's not happy?
Yeah.
Or you've pissed him off. Like, these are very serious questions. So yeah, really good time. I think we'll just give the spoiler warning so we can get into it. It's a long movie. There's a lot to discuss, a lot of ideas and whatnot. So, Terrifier 2. I mean, it's set a year after the first one, but the prologue scene I think is set the same night as Terrifier 1. So Terrifier 1, and you just rewatched it, so you can remind me if I'm wrong. But after Art seemingly died at the end of the first movie, the ending was him waking up in the morgue and sort of like, oh, he's alive.
It's like a quick little jump scare.
Yeah. But so in Terrifier 2, it's kind of like him just, he's just gotten up and this is him out in like an alleyway somewhere, and this is him just sort of recouping after he's woken back up. And we get like some fun antics from him right at the start of the movie. He goes into like a vet's or something like that, like a vet clinic. And like brutally murders the guy who's working there, including ripping out his eye and putting it in his own eye socket, which is one of the first moments that made me laugh, because the way he sort of goes ta-da when he shows off his new eye gave me a good chuckle. I don't know.
Yeah. So was that not the? I was trying to think if that. That was not the guy at the morgue, but maybe it
was a guy at the morgue. I don't know. Because then this one I believe opens up with them kind of going back a little bit, like in the morgue before he kind of gets up, and then they have like those other cops come in like wheeling the bodies, and then they. Unless I'm thinking about the end of the first movie, since I watched them so close together. That's not in 2. That's in 1. I didn't see any of this. Okay. That's in 1.
Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking of the end of the first movie.
Literally, the opening shots of this movie are like an alleyway, and then Art comes walking out of the fog or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm running on extremely little sleep, so I apologize.
No, but he brutally kills this guy, and the guy's like trying.
I do remember like the eyeball stuff, because I think so. Are we to think that like, because I got the sense that he because he was like pretty messed up from the end of the first movie, so to me it seemed like he was using that to like replace his eye, which, I mean, I don't know what the supernatural powers of Art how they work. Like if he can just kind of like heal himself and like use other people's body parts or something to replace his own.
Well, I mean, that's what the scene's telling you. He can do this. I don't think it's confusing. He just does it. It's like, okay, so he can do this.
I know. I guess maybe I'm asking more like how.
Well, that's a bigger question, Timmy. I've got some large mythology ideas, but I don't think we're ready for that in the opening couple scenes.
Sure. Yeah.
He goes to a laundrette to clean himself up, and he just strips down naked, except his mask and his face paint, obviously. But he's sitting there reading the newspaper.
This scene was really funny.
That's a really funny scene, because the guy there's sleeping, and it just cuts to him sitting there reading the newspaper, Art that is, while he's like naked, and then it introduces like a new character. I hesitate to call her a character, because it's kind of a figment of his head. Although there are other characters who can see her later, but most regular people can't see her, and that is I think she's credited as just the pale girl.
Okay.
Let me just confirm that. Yeah, the little pale girl is what she's credited as, but she's like a small lady art. It's the best way I could describe her. She's got the same kind of blank, expressionless smile on her face. Her introduction, while staring at art, she seems to shit a bunch of stuff onto the floor.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like, it's not poop.
It was,
I didn't make that clear. It's not poop. It's like a bunch of just other matter. It's disgusting looking, but it's like,
it's very gross.
Yeah. I guess it's just kind of like that chili you were mentioning, is the insides of people. She shits out a bunch of that.
We just like, when we started watching this too, like we just started like eat dinner, and this is like the first like 5 minutes of the movie.
What? Oh, Tim, you just watched the first movie again. You really thought eating dinner during Terrifier 2 was a safe move?
I mean, we don't have a lot of time. Like, by the time we put Wyatt to bed, you know, do I want to wait, you know, to watch, delay the movie another 30 minutes, you know, to eat dinner? You kind of have to power through.
Okay. I mean, I was not eating while I watched the scene.
It's a good choice.
So, no problems for me. But she comes over.
I like this girl. I thought she was very entertaining.
Oh yeah, she's good.
Yeah, I think on paper the idea of like, yeah, give him like a little girl sidekick. It's like, is that the best idea? But I don't know. It actually, I mean, and obviously it's not like, you know, she's really there for like a lot of the movie or anything. But I don't know, whenever she did show up, it was kind of fun.
It wasn't overdone. I think that was the big thing that kept it feeling from like be overbearing. It was still the art show. It never felt like it was taken away from art. But she comes over and they start doing the clapping the hands thing. I don't even know what you call it.
Patty cake.
There you go. And then the guy who's there wakes up and looks at him, and it sort of establishes that he can't see her, so he just sees naked art going like this to himself, like you know. So it's all very amusing. He does kill the guy as he leaves the laundrette, actually. He's already killed him. It kind of reveals that he's already killed him because he's stuck at the top of a broom handle like through his head, and that looks quite cool. But I did like the idea that Art actually cleaned up the laundrette because he's mopping the floor. He's actually cleaning up all the blood. Like, well, that's really considerate of him. You don't see Jason or Michael cleaning up after themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think he knows like what works and like, you know, like because yeah, I think to him like leaving like this big mess and like all this bloody and stuff, like that's not like funny. Like him actually like going the extra mile and cleaning up and tidying up is actually pretty funny though.
Yeah, for sure. So that's where we get the title. We get the Terrifier 2 title, and
from just like, you know, when you were speaking before about like just all the, you know, all the stuff that works for you, like, you know, the synth and the look and stuff of it, like, you know, even stuff like the title credits, like, you reminded me of like the kind of 80s slasher movies that we like just like, you know, the color and like the font and stuff, just it looked cool.
I mean, not even just that. I mean, obviously you get the synth music, but like I think for me, what made it feel really like old school was that it kept like, you know, you'd get a couple of screens of titles of names, and then it would be like, but then you get a little bit of the main character Sienna, like, you know, working on her project. So it kind of it felt like the start of like Dream Warriors specifically was the one I was thinking of, because that movie starts with the main character. I can't remember if she's painting something or she's working on like a model, but she's doing something.
Well, she's working on her costume, I believe.
No. I mean in Dream Warriors. I know what this character's doing. I mean the character in Dream Warriors, but regardless, she's working on something in her room. This was kind of similar, where she's working on her Halloween costume. Yeah,
I think Dream Warriors is actually a pretty apt comparison to make to this movie, because you do get like some dream logic-y, you know, kind of stuff. Like you actually get actual like dream sequences and everything. Yeah.
So it establishes that she's a bit of an artist, and she's making her costume, and there's a lot of stuff behind like what her costume is as it goes on. It looks like a sort of warrior outfit with angel wings, and there's, you know, some stuff that feeds into that as we go. But it introduces her, introduces her mother, introduces her little brother. Her little brother, who is obsessed with serial killers and actually wants to dress as Art for Halloween because there's sketches of him from the previous year, which, you know, like, I think it's poor taste to dress up as an actual serial killer anyway, but to dress up as a serial killer who's not been caught yet, it seems especially
absolutely
dodgy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially something that's like, just from a year ago. That is that's definitely poor taste.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of, we don't necessarily go scene by scene here. I think at this point we can just sort of talk about like Sienna and the other like family characters, like, and just all their stuff before we bring in art into the mix. But you know, we learn that the father's not around anymore. It sounds like he committed suicide early on, and then as the film goes on, you know, we get that confirmed, and we get like some more details about how he died and all the rest of it. The big thing that's set up fairly early on is that the costume she's making for Halloween was something that her dad designed, because he was an artist who drew things. You know, he designed things, and he actually sketched this character. This is a character he made for his daughter when she was younger. So it's she's kind of honoring her father's memory by making this and wearing it for Halloween. That's kind of the big thing they set up for her character. But there's some nice like chemistry, I think, with her and the mum in particular, when she's kind of like talking about her little brother and like, hey, we may have to watch him or send him to a psychologist because he's getting into some weird shit, you know. And this is how it connects to the first film too, because the little brother's looking up the victims of the first movie, so you see some photos of them and stuff like that, which is neat, just to make it all feel like it's part of the same world. Despite the fact that, you know, none of these characters, well, it's not that they don't come back, because technically the one survivor is got a brief appearance later.
Yes.
But more of that.
Yeah. I still have a lot of questions about that, because like that was one of the, like, when I was rewatching the first movie, like I guess I like totally forgot about that opening sequence and was just like, yeah, that is so weird. Like, why does she just like go crazy and kill that reporter? And then I wouldn't say necessarily we get answers in this movie, but I guess we get some more to that story a little bit.
Well, that's a good point, actually, is that bookend from the first movie with the reporter thing, that is actually set during Terrifier 2. Because
you're right, because the friend.
Yeah, because you see her, or you used to hear them talking. Oh yeah, you see it a little bit as well, actually. I think Art's watching it in a scene. But you see like this interview happen with the survivor of the first movie, and then you hear the friend in high school the next day say, hey, shit, you know, that survivor attacked the journalist. And so it kind of like solidifies that does play into the second movie a little bit. And especially the mid-credit scene, which...
very much.
we'll definitely get to. There's some juicy details to be had there. No, not juicy. Okay.
No, it's very juicy.
Okay. So, yeah. No, I think like I say, the little brother's acting can be a bit stilted at times. You know, there's little moments where he comes in to like get help with these little art hat that he wants to wear. The string's broke, and he's talking to his sister. And maybe this is a scene that you could maybe have cut out, but this is one of these little moments where it establishes how they feel about their dad a little bit, and it, you know, brings out some of their family history. And he's got a couple of lines here that feel a bit stilted. The tallest kid in my class, or you know, other little moments like that. But they feel kind of like the sort of cheesy dialogue that you would get in an 80s movie, which is maybe why I kind of felt some charm by it. But
sure,
yeah, that was into. And then the other main characters we get introduced to are Sienna's two friends, and the plot of the movie is that they're going to a party together later on for Halloween, and you know, so that's the basic setup of that stuff. And she's freaking out because one of the big things that happens early on, and this is the big first thing we're going to really talk about, is the dream sequence, which notably I don't think Art appears in the like present day of the movie until after this dream sequence, which I think is maybe a little interesting. But Sienna's like flicking through TV as she's lying in bed, and she lands on this weird like kids show where it's, you know, someone's got a guitar and they're singing songs with kids, and it's like a kids TV set, and it's called the Clown Cafe, and they're singing about the Clown Cafe, and she falls asleep, and then she has a dream where she's in this, right? She's stuck one of the little kids in the Clown Cafe, and the song's going on, and it's, you know, it's talking about, and you see like a mural of Art the Clown on the wall, and Art eventually shows up, and it's a really wild scene because he ends up pulling out a Tommy gun after he's been nice to a bunch of them and like giving them presents in his very Art the Clown way. He pulls out a Tommy gun and just mows everyone down, and then starts using other weapons. He uses a flamethrower at one point. He's doing all this crazy stuff. And he's chasing down Sienna, and it's a pretty long sequence actually. It goes on for like a good 5 minutes at least, from start to finish, and eventually Sienna, like in the dream, holds up the sword her dad gave her, which is actually sitting in her bedroom. The dad gave her this sword, and it blocks the fire, but when she wakes up, like her entire like cabinet where the sword is lying is all on fire, as if it's actually affected the room. It's affected the real world. And it's a bit of drama. The mum comes in and puts the fire out, blah blah blah, and that's got her kind of shaking the next day, and she's kind of scared. Right, so a lot of interesting things here. The idea that she's in some way connected to Art before Art's even showing up, and it's true that for the rest of the movie, Art is kind of zeroing in on her the whole movie. Like he's going after her friends, he's going after her family. Obviously, he sees her at the Halloween costume store. Like it's all about getting to her. Like he's clearly zoning in on her, and this dream, I guess, is kind of the first thing with the hints as to why and to maybe what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes like dream sequences can be kind of cheap in movies or whatever, but I actually like this quite a bit. Like I thought it was like very weird and creepy and cool. It probably went on a little too long. Like it feels like something that maybe could have been trimmed, but I do like the kind of general weirdness around all this. And I forget if this is where we get like the kid eating the cereal too.
Yeah, this is a kid eating the cereal with the razor blades in it. Yeah,
like I like all this. I just like all this like kind of extra weirdness. Like Art is already weird and he does like all the gags and stuff, but I like all this kind of extra stuff too. Like. Yeah, these like weird messed up kids that are doing this stuff, like and it just adds like this kind of unsettling nature to the movie. Like it doesn't need to be there, but it's like really nice like a little extra like treat to give you, just to make it seem like weird and nasty.
I mean, it kind of functions in a few different ways. One, there's a bit of a gap between the first like 10 minutes where Art's doing a lot of killing and then the next proper kill. So this kind of acts as a stopgap kill where you get to see him kill a lot of people, but it's not real, but you still get to see it. You still get the visuals of him doing all this crazy stuff. But it also is intriguing because it's like, okay, why is she having this dream? What does it mean? So this is where I'm going to bring up something from All Hallows Eve, which I only vaguely remembered. I double checked it to be sure. But if you remember, All Hallows Eve, it was an anthology movie, and the last segment was the Art the Clown segment. The premise of that was that the babysitter, whoever it was in the movie, was watching different tapes that the kid had, or maybe it was one tape that had different stories on it. But either way, it was like a VHS tape or whatever. And she was watching the stories on that. So she watches the stories, and the third one's the Art the Clown one. Assuming there was three, maybe there was more than three, but it was the last one was the Art the Clown one. And then the final segment is the Art the Clown like sort of was on the TV and kind of recognized her and was trying to break out the TV, and then he came into the real world. So
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I can't help but notice here that she sees this show on TV, and you could read it as she's just already dreaming, it's not really there or whatever. But this idea that art came through media, or you could call it art, right? He came through art, right? Where does Sienna's costume and this like fictional character she's playing come from?
Oh, the dad's notebook.
Drawings, yeah, like so from art. She also comes from art. So this is where my connecting the red string on the board really begins, and because so just to talk about this now, since we're kind of into it, as the film goes on, obviously the big things that play out from this that are relevant to it is we find out more about the dad and how he died. We find out that he had a tumor and he was having visions of something bad before the end, and he ultimately, I think he got drunk and drove into like a electric transformer or something and fried, and that's how he died. But he was having these visions and talking about bad things happening, and he made a point of giving his daughter this sword before he died, right? And he'd already been drawing this character up until that point. That sounds like something he'd been doing since she was smaller, but you know, like it became more of a full-fledged, complete thing before he went away. So he's doing that, right? And he was knew that something bad was coming. So art came through media from wherever he came from. he is clearly some sort of supernatural entity, or maybe a cosmic entity. He is a force of evil of some kind. He can clearly just revive as much as he wants. He can't be killed. Or he can be killed, but he'll always come back, I guess is maybe a better way of putting it. And in this movie, we introduce Sienna, who also dies before the end of the movie and is resurrected just like Art, and is able to seemingly kill Art again with her sword that her dad gave her. So my wild logic here, what I'm reading from this, is that she is embodying some sort of cosmic force or supernatural force herself. Call it, maybe you could call it an angel, maybe the wings are kind of trying to hint that it's an angelic force, or whatever. But the way I was kind of getting at this is that the Art himself, the physical body he's in, might not really be his body. It might even be her dad.
That was like my one
that was,
little thing. I was like, is it maybe?
No, this is the thing. I don't have a problem with this because I don't think it's actually her dad. Her dad, it's just his body.
Right.
You know, it's just like Art, whatever entity Art is, he's in the dad's body, and maybe the dad was having these visions for whatever reason. He was, he was having these visions because of the tumor of what was coming, and he kind of made sure his daughter had the tools to be the one that could fight him. So I think that she's still her, she's still Sienna, but I think she has now got something else in her that's come from the Art. Whether or not it was created in the Art and it came to her, or the Art is just a way for it to pass through to her. I feel like both Art and her both have that. They've both received whatever makes them special through Art. And I've got a meta reason for this that I love, and I'm going to get into in a minute. But it's just, as far as inside the universe goes, how are you feeling about all this interpretation?
No, I mean, that's really interesting. Again, I haven't, really had the time to put a lot of that together. Like, my one thing was, since seeing like all that stuff in the sketchbook, and since Art was so focused on hunting the kids down, like my one kind of theory was like, oh, like, could it be the dad or whatever? And correct me if I'm wrong, I think I missed this, but my wife was saying something about how they're talking about like when the dad died, like I forget if he was getting fried or was in a fire or something, but like something happened where like his like lungs or mouth got scorched, so like he couldn't even scream anymore.
She may have said something like that.
Yeah, because I think I might have like missed it for a second, but then my wife mentioned it. But when she said that, that was another thing. I was like, oh well, like Art can't talk, so like, yeah, if he is inhabiting the body, maybe if that is part of it, where like in the end when the dad died, like it, he couldn't talk anymore, and that's a possible reason why Art can't talk. So, and it adds
maybe like an extra layer to it. If when we say he was having these visions when he had this tumor, maybe the tumor was that he knew he was going to get taken over. Maybe that's why he tried to kill himself. Maybe he tried to kill himself because he knew that this force was going to go into him. And that would explain the connection between Art and Sienna on this level where he's aware of her and he knows about her and he knows that she's the threat to him, and that's why he's coming after her, kind of thing.
Yeah, man, I like that a lot. That actually makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you were able to pick up on all that and put that together, because I mean, it's hard to say if that is necessarily true or whatever. Hopefully, we'll find out or whatever. But I do like that interpretation of it. I think that is a pretty cool, interesting theory.
I think it makes sense because his name's Art, and it was the falling asleep to the TV advert, and then that becoming kind of like real in her head, and then like almost like she got her powers during that segment because like she used the sword in the dream, and it almost just it made me think, I was like, wait, wasn't there something about Art coming out of a TV before? And that's what I went back and double checked All Hallows Eve, and I went, wait a minute.
I'm glad you remember that. And then and I like it if that is the case. I like that sometimes you'll have like someone will appear in like a small segment or something before their bigger role, and sometimes I'll kind of just toss that aside and be like, oh yeah, technically that was the first appearance, but it's not really like the same character, it's not the same thing. But I mean, if that is if all that does work out, it is kind of cool that is like that they had that idea like all the way at the start of it. And
whether or not it was planned exactly like this from the start, or it's just like, oh wait, that's how I introduced them, so I'm going to use that in building the greater world that he's now doing.
Yeah. I gotta tell you though, I love this shit, and this is actually I think one of like the funnest things, like, you know, like when you're talking about movies, because I was having like a discussion like you know, with a friend the other day, and they were asking about you know, we're talking about the movie Nope, which, you know, we haven't done on the show, but, you know, we will do eventually, and soon. I'm not going to spoil anything. Yeah, very soon. But, you know, I'm not going to spoil anything, but basically, like, you know, there was like stuff that, you know, this friend was kind of confused by, so like they're asking questions, and they're like, yeah, you know, I don't really get it. You know, I was trying to look up like YouTube videos to get explanations and stuff, and it's like, nah, like that's not the way to do it. Like, I feel like so many people that watch the movie and then like they'll instantly want to be like, okay, yeah, let me go see the YouTube video that says like blah 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 movie explained or whatever, and it's like, I don't know, that's just not like as fun a way to do it. Like, I like this kind of thing where like you're talking to a friend and it's like, oh, you know, I piece this thing together and I got this idea here, and then you go like, oh shit, like, yeah, and then actually if that's true, then that reminds me of this other part of the movie where like that works out and stuff. And I don't know, I think there's like, I don't know, I think like audiences, I don't know if you agree, but like I feel like audiences are very passive nowadays. Like a lot of people just want answers and stuff explained to them in like a, you know, 3-minute YouTube clip or whatever.
But no, Tim, don't shit on these people too much, because some of them might come to us for the explanation, and I very much appreciate that traffic, so
Oh no, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I mean, you should definitely listen to us, but
yes,
you know, I think, but I like to think that the people that are listening to us are very smart and already have their ideas and theories, but they just want to get our take on it and have a discussion about it.
That's right. Massage them, massage the egos, Tim. That's right.
But kind of, I guess, but to relate it back to the movie though, I think what's interesting about this is, you know, I think there's a way where, you know, people might watch it and say, well, this was stupid. It didn't make any sense. Like, why does this happen? Why does this happen? But then I think there's a way that, you know, you and I are looking at it where it's like, it feels like the filmmaker knows what he's doing, and maybe he's not letting us in on everything yet. But I feel confident that he's not just putting stuff that, hey, this would be cool. Like, you know, it's like I can feel that there's like a mythos there that he you know, is exploring. And
yeah, absolutely. I especially since, like, even if you don't get everything I was just talking about the TV stuff, because maybe you've not seen All Hallows Eve, you've forgotten or whatever, like they hammer home her dad drew this outfit and gave her this sword. Like, they make it clear that like this creation comes from his art, and the killer's name is Art. Like there is a connection there that I think is even just evident in this movie before you start thinking about everything else you've seen in the film. He also turns on a TV, or like the little pale girl watches the TV interview when the TV's disconnected from anything, which again goes into the idea that you know, like, I don't know, they have this connection with media and content, which I'll get into. You know, I'm very happy you're enjoying this conversation, and I'm happy that you like this part of the movie, because what I was thinking coming into this is that you might like the kills and stuff, but this is the part that you might hate because it's not explained in this movie or whatever. I love piecing it together though. You know, I love, like, as long as it feels like there's a method to the madness, and you're like, okay, there's something here, I can get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing here is, you know, it's a matter of like talent and skill, where, yeah, if the movie was very poorly made, then this would just be a thing that stands out, that's like, oh yeah, also the movie doesn't make sense, like what the hell's going on. But, you know, when you're someone who actually has like a vision behind it, even though there might be stuff that you have questions on, you feel safe in their hands, that it's like, oh, there's something there. And then, I don't know, to me that just makes it fun, because it's like, oh, well, you know, I like coming up with theories or talking about it with friends, and especially like you were just doing, like when you're like, yeah, like give me some insight that I hadn't thought about. It's like, oh shit, like I like having those little brain pops where it's like, oh man, that's cool. But I don't know, it's a
great feeling. See when you like a movie, then someone like adds like a layer to it that you didn't think of, and it clicks for you immediately. It is a great feeling. You're like, oh shit, you just made it better. Like, you just made it better in my head.
And yeah, and then I don't know, it just makes me mad when like you know, and again, like, you know, not everyone is like this, but I feel like, you know, there's like the larger kind of normie audience out there that just like wants everything explained to them. Like, they just want a character to come on screen and say, well, you know, this is happening because of this and this, and then, you know, that's done. But I don't know, I think that's also like the kind of like a lazier way to do things.
The
like,
filthy casuals who are all watching the
Yes.
Marvel movies during the week and then try and watch Terrifier 2 and complain that it's not spelled out for them.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Am I again? Am I just like an old guy ranting here? Like, do you agree with this? Like, I don't know.
I agree pretty much. You're coming across as an old man yelling at cloud, but I agree with the sentiment you're saying. I'd maybe be a bit more tactful in how I present the argument, but no, I'm on board.
What do I care?
I'm on board. No, I think, you know, what you were saying before about if you feel like you're in the hands of someone who clearly knows what they're doing, even if it's not like an obvious thing up front. Like, to me, that's describing David Lynch. And I'm not saying Terrifier 2 is a David Lynch style thing, because it's not, but that's how I feel with David Lynch, is that you don't necessarily get it all up front. You don't necessarily just understand. And people who don't like it and don't get it, like, they may have valid complaints on why they don't like David Lynch, but they tend to say, oh, it's just a bunch of nonsense that makes no sense. And I'm like, no, there is stuff here. Like, people have dug into it, and there's definitely meat on this bone. It's called Cinema, Sweetheart. Look it up. So, but,
did you real quick? Did you see? There's like a clip going around on Twitter, which I kind of want to look up if like every movie have these, because it's so entertaining. But like, it was a little like commercial or whatever where they're interviewing people after they went and saw Eraserhead like opening night or whatever.
Oh no, I've not seen this.
So it's really funny because you just see like a lot of people like walking out of the movie like, hey, what do you think about the movie? And a lot of them are just like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. And then like there was like one guy that said something along the lines like, oh, it was like the ultimate suspense movie. Like, I kept waiting for something to happen and then it ended.
They weren't ready. They weren't ready for Lynch. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
There are like more people that liked it too, but obviously it's more fun to see the people that are just like completely baffled by it. But I want to see that for every like, you know, movie from like the 70s and 80s, just like seeing audiences' reactions as soon as they're leaving the theater.
Yeah.
I saw this other one, like someone had posted like during Halloween. It was for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I forget which one it was, but yeah, like someone just like came out of the theater like, yeah, man, that Freddy's a nut. So I was like, that's all right. I mean, I guess that's one way to describe him.
Yeah, I can't argue with that statement. He is a nut. So I love this mythology stuff that it's poking at a little bit. I mean, there's maybe some smaller things we've not mentioned yet that we'll point out when we talk about the scenes properly, but like, I think all this kind of enriched the movie to me and added this extra layer that was like beyond just the the slashery goodness, which we're going to get to. But the meta side of this that I wanted to talk about, because once I had this theory in my head, I started thinking about, okay, why is this amazing? Why is this a good idea for a slasher? Because I wouldn't necessarily think a slasher movie is the place where you want to set up a story of good versus evil. Because that's ultimately what they've set up by the end. Is Art is this force of evil. Sienna is imbued with this power of good. She's the one who can take him on. You've got this good versus evil. And that doesn't necessarily work for a slasher movie typically, because you want the heroes, the victims to feel vulnerable, so the killer feels scary, and that's what you do. And then something clicked in my brain, and I went, "Oh, this is genius!" And I'll tell you why it's genius. Right? Okay. It's gold, Jerry, gold. So, to talk about this, to say what I think this is doing, I'm going to bring up Halloween. Fantastic horror film.
Movie of the holiday.
I would say the best horror movie ever made. Michael Myers chasing Laurie Strode. Yada yada. First movie's perfect. Can't fault it. Right. But they keep making sequels, right? They keep doing sequels. Sure. They keep going forever. We just had our 13th Halloween movie, and there's some better sequels, there's some worse sequels, whatever, blah blah blah. I think the idea of Art and Sienna, and the idea that they both come from media, I think this whole thing is kind of like taking the idea that in Halloween sequels, especially in particular sequels, right? Obviously, you have The Shape, you have Michael Myers who can't be killed. And he keeps coming back no matter what, right? They always find a way to bring him back, right? Whether it's reboots or, oh no, he wasn't him, they got his head cut off. Whatever it may be. He always comes back. And technically, Laurie Strode's not invincible. And premise, she's not invincible. She's supposed to be vulnerable, but you don't really believe it, right? She has what we call in the business plot armor, right? And she's effectively invincible in the sense that because they keep wanting to make sequels with Michael versus Laurie, and the biggest complaint we had with the new one was that, we have to go back to Michael versus Laurie, even though it's the worst part of the movie. I think this is genius. This is a meta commentary on this. is that they've done it literally in the story in Terrifier, where the final girl is also now an invincible warrior who will never be able to be defeated by the villain, and the Art the Clown, the Michael Myers, the Jason, whatever you want to call him, is literally also always going to come back, and it's going to be this battle that lasts forever because neither of them can die. It's basically just taking what the other movies end up doing and pretending they're not doing, but this is doing it anyway. So I think there's like
it's spelling it out.
Yeah. So there's like a meta quality to this, and that's why, because I was thinking, but is this a good idea for a slasher movie? And I thought, well, what's it saying about other slasher movies? Because it clearly, is inspired by them. It's clearly, the makers are clearly fans of them. And I was like, I think I like this idea. I like this idea that it's not mocking, but it's playing with a bit of fun of the idea of how when you get these franchises, the main character, if they have a recurring main character, they end up being just as invincible as the villain. And so I don't know, I like it.
I think that's an interesting idea. I like that. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's that's a very interesting way to look at it. And and again, it's a nice little like addition to something you haven't really like seen before. Like, as much as it feels like this is a love letter to slasher films, it does feel like it is also maybe trying to subvert them like a little bit and give you like some stuff that you haven't seen. Like I always forget that like art like will sometimes just use a gun, because it feels like so like unslashery, like
I remember talking about the first movie and saying how I was so shocked when he just pulled out a gun and shot her at one point. It's like, wait, what? You can just do that? Michael would never do that.
That's not like Jason, that's not like part of the rules. Maybe Chucky, but
Chucky's a bit more.
That's it.
I mean, despite the fact that he's an adult, he's more of a regular guy. If that makes sense. I think like the first movie does subvert it in that way, but for the most part, it's just like trying to be this like unrelenting, brutal slasher movie, and it's really sort of like going above and beyond because of that. And then this one is subverting it in these different ways, where it's adding all this extra mythology that doesn't feel typical to a slasher movie. It feels like something more out of I don't know, some sort of like saga than a horror franchise. It's kind of weird. But
I mean, I do think that's cool. Like, it's not something that I would want to see in every movie. Like,
oh, sure, for sure.
Hopefully it's not a trend that all of a sudden it happens. But again, it kind of feels like a little bit of a comparison to like Dream Warriors or something, where you have characters that are able to actually have these abilities to fight back against the slasher, which you don't always, usually it's the very underpowered hero. A lot of times final girl or whatever, they'll have to use like their cunning or whatever to escape, but it's not often that you see them like like a video game or something where they level up or they get like some type of ability to go toe to toe with them. And I think that's like really cool. Again, not something I would want to see in every movie, but I think it works in like Dream Warriors. It works here.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning, even though we're compared to Dream Warriors, I think it does feel very different to that as well. Like, it's a very, this is a very specific, like, and I'm not going to say it's never been done anything similar, but it does feel, it feels fresh, if not completely original to me. At least to do it in this way, in this type of slasher movie, it feels original to me. And I it makes me excited for the third one, not just because I want to see Art kill more people in a variety of nasty ways, although that's definitely part of the charm. I actually care about what they do with the mythology next, which I never thought I'd come out of Terrifier 2 saying.
That's true, yeah.
So that's kind of nuts that he's, Damien Leone, who wrote and directed this, pulled this off. So, fair play. Fair play to him. Like, that's nuts. So, so that's some of the mythology stuff. I felt like that was just neater to put all together, because otherwise it'd be doing a piecemeal throughout the movie.
Yeah.
We talk about the different art scenes, we talk about the kills. The first half of the movie, it's easy to separate kind of before the party and like after the party. If there's something else I would trim, maybe it would be some of the party scenes. Like, there's a lot of scenes of them dancing at the party. Like, you could probably trim that down a little bit as well.
Yeah, I don't like the drug stuff. Is like, I don't need. It's like,
yeah, sure.
I mean, it's fine. Like, it doesn't like take away from the movie or whatever. But it's like, like if you needed stuff to like cut out or trimmed.
I think that's just well, maybe not so much the stuff where like so the friend Brooke like slips some Molly into Sienna's drink. And
great friend.
Yeah, while she's on it, she sort of like says that's horrible, but she's sort of laughing because she's high. I do appreciate that when she was starting to sober up afterwards, she actually started to like, hey, you drugged me, that's not cool. Like, what the hell? Like, I was like, yeah, if someone slipped me something without consent, I don't care who you are, I'm going to, like, I'll turn into Art the Clown.
Yeah, it's extremely messed up.
Yeah. So yeah, but at least when it was Brooke and her boyfriend though, with the cocaine or whatever it was in the car, at least with that, I felt like this seems like a classic slasher movie thing where it's like, oh, they're doing drugs, so they're about to get killed. It felt like a sort of callback to the, the 80s slasher movie where the people doing the bad things get brutally murdered.
By the way, I mean, you want to talk about tension, man, that scene when they're in the car and then the boyfriend's taking a piss and then, Brooke just looks at the window and like written on the window in the steam or whatever, it says just the tip. I like was instantly like, oh no, I know something bad is going to happen to that penis.
Which was a callback because the guy's wearing a shirt that says just the tip, but it's like a knife, but just a bit of blood at the end. But it's a double entendre, as they say. Yes. But yeah. So... yeah, Art's just sort of working on it. He's building like it's basically like a really extreme chib where he's got like it's like a leg of a table or something, and he's just like breaking up bits of scissors and knives and just like sort of like molding it into hammering it into the wood. So he's got this weird, but it's on the poster actually, you can see it. But he's building that, and he like sees a bit of the interview on TV with the survivor of the last movie. He just sort of starts laughing at it in his quiet way, which I always enjoy. But the next time I think you see him is at the Halloween store, the costume store.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Because of the fire, her wings that she'd made meticulously at the start of the movie were destroyed. She had to go buy a cheap pair of angel wings. So she's in the store, she's looking around, and Art just comes in and he's just over in the corner and he waves at her. But the fun really begins because she gets freaked out and she goes up to like buy the wings and she's checking out, and like every time she's looking for her purse or whatever. And Art brings it up for her because she forgets her bag, and Art just like puts it on the counter and just sort of like saunters over to the novelty section, and we get this sequence where every time she looks back at Art, he's wearing a different set of like glasses. He's got like the googly eyes ones. He's got the sunglasses at one point. He's putting on a show.
Yeah,
he's putting on a show. But the best part of this scene. The guy, the employee, the one who's like ringing her up, goes to get her a big bag for the wings. So he leaves the scene for a moment, and Art picks up a bullhorn, and he does that sort of that cartoon tiptoe thing with his hands up, and he comes over to her, and like she's just sort of standing there scared because she's already freaked out. She wants to leave as quickly as possible, and he's like right next to her, and he just slowly brings up the horn up to the side of her face, and it's just before he goes up to the side of her face, she just goes, "Please don't." maybe I've got a really dark sense of humor, but that really made me laugh.
No, it's really funny. I think the whole scene honestly was, I was laughing quite a bit. Just because I don't know, Art is funny. Like,
every time we come back to him, it just, and then obviously he does ring it. He does go, it just does it in her ear a couple of times.
And it's just like the juxtaposition too between him doing like very corny gags and like her just being completely terrified. It's just very funny.
And you've also got that thing where like this could be the real killer from last year, but there's also a lot of people dressing up as him apparently for Halloween. So it's like, is it she's not sure, is it really him or is it just some asshole? Like.
Yeah. That was one thing I was like a little like iffy about, because I was like, well, all right, so people know what this guy looks like and that he's on the loose. Like, you think people would be a little bit more scared of him just like, walking around and stuff. But I guess if it is like a popular costume or whatever.
Well, I think, I guess it makes sense to me when I think about the idea that they don't have a photo of him, they just have a sketch, and no one's seen him since last Halloween. It's been a year. I don't know. It kind of works for me. Obviously, Art kills the employee though. He tries to buy the horn, and he opens up his like big. He's got like a big trash bag, and he's like just emptying the blades and like the various rusty bits of metal that he's got, and then kills the guy. He bashes his head in so much, it switches to like a prosthetic head that gets just impaled. And there's just blood oozing out, and the chili, as we talked about, and all the rest of it. Really, really brutal. Not the brutalest death in the movie, though. We still need to get to that because there's.
And it's funny, the mom with her kids tried to come into the store, but it's locked up, and then you just see like Art in the window holding the guy's head. Like, that's funny. Yeah,
there's a few moments in this where Art kind of like is like he gets away because people assume that it's a Halloween thing. Like, it's just a Halloween decoration. It's not a real head he's holding, there's a couple scenes like that. It's a fun time. So, and also, this one was a bit murkier for me. I wasn't sure, like, how real it was, although I assume it was real to the extent that Art was there, but the little brother in school, who's, by the way, his principal, did you recognize her?
From Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah, Felicia Rose from Sleepaway Camp. There's like a dead was it a possum?
Possum, yeah.
And they see it outside, but then when he's inside, he gets the hall pass to go to the bathroom. He runs into the little pale girl and Art, and they throw it at him. So when the teacher like catches him in the hall with blood all over his shirt, and then sees the dead possum in the hall, needless to say, he gets into trouble and gets sent home.
Like one thing that I found kind of frustrating about this stuff, like between like this and the principal and like with his mom and stuff, is that like it feels like everyone's just automatically like angry at this kid and like doesn't really give him a chance to explain, or maybe he doesn't take the chance to explain enough about like what's going on. And I mean, granted, maybe they wouldn't believe him anyway if he told them, but I just hate that thing where someone's getting in trouble for something that they didn't do. That was like, it's hard for me to watch.
I mean, I don't think anyone's going to believe him. In fact, he does kind of say it was the clown, I think, at one point to his mom. And I'm like, I don't necessarily blame her for not believing that there was a grown man dressed as a clown who threw a possum at him inside the school. But he can clearly see the little pale girl, though. And he's obviously related to Sienna.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why. There's a connection there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a connection. All right, let's talk about the scene. You know what one we're going to talk about.
Of course, yeah. I forget what the other friend's name was, but the other friend.
I want to say Allie was her name.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So she's home. This is like in the afternoon before the party's going to start. And she's giving out candy to the kids, the trick-or-treaters. And then Art rings the doorbell. And just holds out the bag, and she's like, "You're a little old to be trick-or-treating," and refuses to let him in. And he does seem to go away. She gives him some candy and he walks away.
She does like weirdly have a long conversation with him, even though he's not saying anything. She just kind of linger by the door and talk to him for a long time, which I did think was kind of weird. Like, she's like, oh, like, you're weird. Like, what's with the costume? What are you doing? Like, huh. Oh, right. And then eventually she's like, well, sorry, no candy for grown-ups, which not to say that she deserves like what happens to her, but I do think if someone shows up at your door and they're dressed up, even if they're an adult, I think you should still give them candy. Like, if if you have a very limited supply of candy and you want to save it for the kids, fine, but like, just give them like 1 or 2 pieces of candy. It's fine. If they go to the trouble of dressing up, it doesn't matter how old they are, you should still get candy, I think.
This feels like Tim still goes trick-or-treating and he's trying to plant the seeds in everyone to still give them candy. That's what this sounds like.
I just, we need to get over this social stigma of Halloween being for kids only.
You've got a kid, though. You could just like make sure your kid gets plenty and eat some of his. It's easy.
I'm not gonna steal from my kid. Come on.
He's stealing from you on a daily basis. You're paying for his shelter, his food, anything he uses. You deserve some candy.
I keep an itemized list. He's paying me back.
Oh, right, okay. As soon as he turns 18, that's an itinerary of everything. Anyway, so he breaks in later that night, though, through the sort of the patio door in the back, and This scene is absurdly brutal. Like it goes so long. Because when you said, I'm not saying she deserved what she got, like you would have to hate someone pretty bad to think she deserved any of this. This is
and she's I thought she was a very likable character. Like I thought she seemed like kind of like the best friend. Like
she was the nice friend.
Seems like the like Brooke seems like the the more dangerous friend that like you hang out with, but you're not always that sure like how you feel about them. Like this it seemed like they're very nice together, and I thought I like the actress and the character I thought was like just enjoyable. So yeah, to get all this that's like happening to her is like oof, brutal.
I think some movies would like this would be like one of the unlikable characters' deaths, but I think it's actually funnier that it's not.
Oh sure. Yeah.
I think the fact that this is the nice friend makes it funnier, because this is a scene that she gets like a slice down her face, like right down her eye, right, and that's the start of it. And then Art and I'll probably get the order of some of this mixed up, but he starts cutting around her head and like scalps her basically, and rips off the hair. It actually reveals part of the brain. Now I'm thinking about it. Right, and then she's like crawling on the floor. He snaps. In fact, the part that actually makes me really start laughing is when he picks up her arm and starts trying to break it off at the elbow, but it has to like go back and forwards a few times and then pulls it off. When he starts going back and forwards, that's when I start bawling with laughter, because it's like, okay, this is getting absurd. Like, what are you doing to this woman? But the funniest part though is that he leaves the room, and I'm thinking, right, she's definitely dead now. There's no way she's alive. And he comes back in, and she's still moving and crying, and he pours bleach on her. And at this point, she is like so bloody, and she's got open wounds on her back. Her head's open. In fact, I think at this point he's also like grabbed her hand and split it. Like so, he's kind of split her. Presumably the one that he didn't snap off. He's split it down the middle from her fingers. So he's got like the fingers like that, and split.
Like the way Art treats human bodies is like the way I treat boxes when I'm trying to like fit a bunch of stuff into the recycling can. Like I have to like start like bending stuff and like tearing off pieces to make sure it can all fit. Like that's that's just what he does, but with human skin and bones.
The best thing I can describe for the arm actually is that when you've got a chicken wing and you separate the two bits.
Oh yeah.
That's how he snaps the arm.
Oh my goodness.
And then he literally, after the bleach, he just pulls out a full tub of salt and starts pouring salt all over, and then he starts rubbing it into her back, and I'm like, Art, what are you doing? This is so vicious. What are you madman? And then I'm like, okay, she's definitely dead. There's no way she's still alive. And then her mum gets home. This may be a slightly later scene, but the mum gets home, sees the window broken, comes upstairs and walks in on him, and he's got her like propped up against the bed, and it's an animatronic. It's a really cool animatronic now, but she's still actually moving in pain, just slightly like, oh. And Art's just sort of making this face where he's like, he's looking back at the mom and he's laughing, and the mom's just screaming her head off because like she's just walked in and her daughter not just being murdered but like mutilated and tortured, and just it's the most. And maybe this makes us a sick pair of bastards, Tim, but I thought this was hilarious.
No, I mean, it is so funny. It's obviously very dark, but I mean, if you're watching this movie, again, unless you totally have no idea what it is, but you're probably watching it because you have a little bit of a dark sense of humor, or you're a gore hound or whatever. And the thing is, it's the over the topness of it that's funny. Yeah. Like, if I heard this happen to someone in real life, obviously I'm not gonna bust out laughing, but in terms of a movie where usually like a killer will kill someone and then move on, the fact that they are being so vicious, and it's like a cartoon really, like it's,
oh yeah, for sure,
it feels like Wile E. Coyote if he actually like caught the Roadrunner and then like was just like gnawing at it and not letting it go.
It's the way he laughs at what he's doing, and he's just like he's so proud of his work. It is delightful.
And like when the mom opens the door and you see like she almost looks like just like basically like a skeleton with blood practically, like and you think like, oh my god, like there's no way she's alive, and then she just kind of has that little sputter of like mom or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, like they are being very vicious.
And I'm pretty sure if this actually happened to her, you wouldn't be alive still at this point, but it's hilarious for the scene that she is slightly alive. And then you don't see Art kill the mum, but you see him. Actually, no, it's still her head, right? I mean, you assume he kills her, but he uses the head he takes out the brain, and then he uses the head as a bowl of candy.
Oh,
so,
right. Yes.
So trick-or-treaters come, and they're like, oh, is that so cool? And like, one of the kids goes, oh, it's so sticky. And the mum just goes, it's just fake blood, honey. My favourite part of this, though, is that one kid goes for a second bit of candy, and Art slaps his hand and goes, one. And then he waves at the kids. He's so happy to give them stuff. Maybe you could say that the dream earlier on was foreshadowing him giving presents out to kids, because he kind of does it here.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a little bit there. So this is the point where you're like, oh, he has to be like targeting Sienna because he's going after her friend now. He ran into her at the store. Now he's targeted her friend. It's not going to be too long until he targets the mother. The mother, who, by the way, is just constantly pissed off at her son for various things. She even tries to like make it up and say, hey, let's watch some horror movies and eat some food, and like, and he's still upset that no one's believing him because he actually, he did see this thing and he's like really traumatized by it. Actually, the mum's the biggest villain in the movie, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
She's watching Night of the Living Dead at one point, which, as we always point out, public domain. That's why so many movies have characters watching Night of the Living Dead, because it's free. But she's watching it stretch to fill the widescreen TV. The absolute filth. Her death was too quick. I'm just going to say that. Her death was too quick. Although I did love it, though. I love the setup for her death, where she thinks the son has done this, but obviously it's Art, has like completely covered her car in shaving foam and toilet paper, and there's like a smashed pumpkin, and it says bitch on her windscreen. And she's like complaining on the phone to Sienna, and then she starts cleaning the side window, and then that actually reveals that Art's been sitting in there, because it feels like we're looking at this car like this for a while she's on the phone and complaining about it and stuff, and then she cleans the window, and Art's in there just with a shotgun and just like completely splats her head. Like, you see like what remains of her head hitting against the wall, which is just delightful. Which I mean, were you a fan of the mashed potato scene?
I thought it was funny. Yeah.
Yes, with
again, I like the set dressing that like Art does.
Yes.
Like he is an artiste, like he could easily just go and kill people if he wants them dead or whatever, but it's like there's the art of the gag is important to him, like he to set up the mom and the dinner, and like it's funny to think that he probably was going there and like actually cooking food and stuff.
It's a presentation, and so Jonathan was out and like sees like Art's van and gets creeped out and runs back home, and he walks in. His mother's like body with this imploded face is sitting at the dinner table, and Art like serves some mashed potato on her plate and then just picks it up and starts shoving it into the hole where her face used to be.
Yeah.
It's just at this point it's not that shocking, because the kill that we had with Ali, it was so goddamn over the top that at this point nothing's going to shock us, but it's just more of that dark sense of humor that you kind of like enjoy, which I appreciate. I think it was smart for the next kill to be a quick one, like a surprise that he's there and like quick boom, because it was so different from the long drawn out torture of the previous victim. You don't want to feel like, you don't want to get stale, you don't want to just keep doing the same thing.
That makes sense.
So I appreciate it from a pacing perspective, but Art's after Jonathan and ultimately kidnaps him to lure Sienna to this old fairground, and specifically a sort of like horror house called the Terrifier. So
interesting.
Yeah, I actually popped to it when she's like texting the brother, and the brother says he's in the Terrifier, all caps. I was like, oh, okay, like it's such a silly little thing, but I kind of appreciate that they're like they got the title in there somehow.
Yeah.
In a way that didn't feel super forced.
I think like I literally had like just made a joke online or something about like how like the name Terrifier, it's like why is it called Terrifier or whatever, and then like that scene happened, I was like, oh, okay, like that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean the original shorts I think were called Terrifier as well, so I this is something obviously they've just thought of for this movie, but it's a nice little wink wink, nudge nudge. He wants to lure Sienna there, who is going through the whole thing where she's at the party and then they're driving her home, and she gets scared because the mum's not picking up, and Jonathan like phones or texts saying that he's been kidnapped to this old fairground. Of which
It's not him speaking though.
no, that's right. It's a pale little girl is doing it like Terminator, where she's like putting on his voice perfectly. Yeah, obviously it's dubbed with the actor, but you know that's how she can perfectly mimic the voice.
So one thing that's kind of annoying, I hate when they do this, but generally me and my wife will usually watch everything with captions on, just because we're older, we don't have the best hearing, and then sometimes you don't want to miss something or whatever. But
you could just say you don't want to wake up the baby, but yeah, sure, okay, you're
sure.
old.
Yeah,
you're old and aging and dying and can't hear anything.
But like, so they do this thing where like the phone rings or whatever, and he picks it up and it's Jonathan's voice, and then in the the caption it says like parentheses demon voice, and then like the lines from the phone.
Okay.
And it's like, I mean, obviously we're gonna see it in 2 seconds anyway, but like still, it's like, come on, it's like a little mini spoiler in the captions.
Yeah, because even someone who's hard of hearing who needs like the subs, like they're going to see it themselves as well. Like it doesn't need to be explained to them. So that one does feel a bit. I always prefer when they have the option of just the subtitles or the subtitles for the hard of hearing, where it has all the extra stuff. I would like the option to be there to just have the dialogue and none of the sound effects or whatever else they may put in there. Yeah. Obviously that one's more important because some people actually need that to even watch the movie, but sure, like surely you could have a stripped down version just for the dialogue if people want to watch it with that. But and sometimes you get that option, but you don't always. So at this point, like, we're actually really far into this long runtime, and I think part of the reason why it takes a while to like get going is like you have this 10-minute prologue, you have a lot of reasonable setup with the characters. I don't think she even gets to the Halloween party until like maybe an hour and 15, hour 20 into the movie, and then so by the time they're leaving the Halloween party and going to the fairground where the big climax is going to take place, you're quite far into it. It's the friend Brooke who explains what happened to the dad and to her boyfriend once Sienna leaves the car to go and look for her brother. They're left alone, and of course they end up dead. So the boyfriend, as we hinted at earlier, gets his dick cut off and then stabbed repeatedly in the crotch. That's his demise. Brooke gets out the car and like runs away. She gets slashed a little bit here or there, but she runs into like some of the areas in the fairground. And eventually, when she's cornered, Art, and I like this actually because they set it up that he had it in his bag, like way early in the movie. I think he gets it at the doctor's office or the vet's in the opening scene, like when he's like he collects a bunch of stuff from there after he kills the guy, but he pulls out this jar of acid and throws it at her face, so she starts like melting, and then he pulls out his like super weapon that he built earlier on and just starts smashing her face and her chest with it. Until she's just a pool. She's like a pool of mush and blood at a certain point. To the point where when Sienna does walk in and like sees her body, I was like, how can you even tell? How can you tell it's her? Like at this point, there's like nothing identifying. Maybe her. No, she took her shoes off because she was having trouble running in them, or something. Yeah. So yeah, like she's a pool of blood.
Yeah, no, I mean this again. The special effects, are great. The acid is in her face, like it's not only is it like really gory, but it's also like bubbling, and it just like it looks so brutal.
The bubbling is good because the bubbling like separates it from just whenever he's like smashed someone's face in. The bubbling makes it feel unique and different or whatever. All quality stuff. So it seems like the reason why he wanted to bring Sienna here is because he had So this is the one part of the mythology that I can't really explain other than just like thematically. This like pool that she goes into, the edge of it is kind of like those mirrors you get in show business with all the lights around the mirror. It kind of looks like that. It's got this like rim of lights, of these light bulbs around it, but it's this pool that he puts her in after he stabs her with the father's sword, which obviously he got when he was kidnapping Jonathan in their house. And she goes down there and then she sees like some of the dream again, some of the that she had earlier with the TV set, and then her wounds magically heal and she comes back. And as this is all going on, like Art's chasing Jonathan around. Jonathan, when they're struggling together at one point, like actually shoots. Like I'm kind of like glossing over the fact that they kind of kill Art like 2 or 3 times in the past 10 minutes because there's a lot of like shooting him with a shotgun. You get stabbed a lot. at one point, and it's quite brutal actually, because at one point he's like whipping Jonathan, who's like a 12-year-old kid. It's like a chain that he's attached like some blades to at the end. So there's like half a scissors is on one, or just a scissor, maybe that's how you'd say it. And there's like other blades, and he's just like whipping it at him, and then he whips it at Sienna. There's a lot of like just these little nasty cuts happening all over the place.
Yeah,
it's really brutal. But Sienna's wounds heal, and she comes back up, and just as like Art's about to kill Jonathan, he's got like a big needle or something at this point, she starts hacking at him, and she hacks at his head, and then eventually decapitates Art, and kind of gets the big victory. But at this point, she is like covered in blood. She looks like a badass. She looks super tough and all the rest of it. And the end of the movie, as they're hugging, the little pale girl walks out, doesn't attack them, doesn't do anything to them. She just picks up Art's head, his severed head, and leaves. In fact, I want to say that when he sees that Sienna's back alive again, it's the only time in the movie where he properly like makes an angry face. I think that's right, because he smiles right before he dies. He realizes he's about to die, and he smiles again, so that his decapitated head has the traditional, that signature Art smile that he has. But so that's kind of the gist of the big climax. But I think the dream is kind of interesting to think back of now, because there were some weird details in the dream that we didn't point out. Like there's a group of characters who are holding their passports and have like plane tickets in their passport off to the side. And I wonder if that's like a representation of like wherever these beings are, or wherever these powers come from that Art and Sienna have. Is this like to show that this is like something's traveled from somewhere else? That's the only thing I could think of to maybe say what the passport people were, or the tourists, or whatever you want to call them, whatever they were representing. That's what I kind of thought for them. There's like a nun with like a homeless guy, and she's like sort of yelling at them to feed the homeless guy. I don't think I've got something for that. Yeah, I don't think I've thought of any interpretation of that yet. But the Travelers, I might be onto what it's supposed to be, but I'm not sure. People can give me their own theories in the comments for that.
I think that is interesting though. There is like a lot going on in that dream sequence. It does seem like, again, I don't think the stuff is in there just randomly, there's got to be a meaning behind it.
I think when I said earlier that dream sequence is when I think she first gets her connection to whatever powers or maybe cosmic entities like now embodying her. But I think it's no accident that when the powers truly activate, where she becomes invincible, or at least is reanimated the same way Art is, I think it's no coincidence that she's then seeing that dream again. That's kind of what she's seeing. It's almost like the powers fully taking hold and giving her the ability. And I think it kind of foreshadows a little bit earlier on, because when the fire happens, afterwards she finds the knife or the blade again, and it's not burned, it's completely perfect, almost as if it's come back to pristine quality. I don't know if that's maybe a hint that later on, the blade is going to help her, resuscitate and come back to life. Because it's not even just like she comes back out of the water and she's okay. Like all of her wounds like magically heal. Like she comes back at full strength. So
yeah. She looks like she's powered up or something. Like she's going like supersonic. Like
it's and her outfit's sort of Wonder Woman-y, maybe a bit Xena. There's kind of a warrior quality to it.
It's a cool outfit. I do like it. Like especially when you get into this last segment here, and she's like, fully badass. Like it's a, cool outfit that, versus, Art's evil clown look.
Oh yeah, and again, like not that it's necessarily a supernatural biblical thing, but the idea that the person who's going to fight Art is like some sort of warrior angel, even if it's not literally an angel, I think it's like an interesting visual, and symbol to use to just put the fight on the screen, So. Yeah, I loved all this shit. This was full of just goodness.
Yeah, it's very fun. Like it's, it is a long movie, but like, it does keep you like on your toes. Like there's never any point where I was like, like I might be checking my watch, but just because I'm like, checking for bedtime or something, but it's never like you're looking at like, okay, how much more of this do I have left? Like it's like, you are into it for the ride.
Yeah, like the I think the lead character, the movie could have whiffed quite hard if she was a pain to watch, if we weren't into her scenes, because obviously that's when art's not there usually. But no, she's still quite interesting. She's likable. She carries the movie. Every time art's on screen, it's impossible not to just be entertained completely by what's happening. And then you have all this cool mythology that's teased at, and there's a lot of meat in that bone to talk about, because we did for quite a bit. Literally the only real critique I would really have is that you could probably trim it down by like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get it down to that 2 hour mark, and you'd probably be in pretty perfect territory by that point.
And again, like I'm kind of complaining about it now, but like I just, for personal circumstances where I've had to watch it within 2 days, where just I've been extremely tired, has made it like difficult. Like I will definitely watch this again at some point, and like hopefully next time I watch it, I can actually watch it on my nice big TV, and it'll be a time where I have more energy and I'm awake, and like I can watch it the whole way through. Like when I do it again, like maybe the length won't bother me as much as it did this time. Not that it was a huge bother or anything, but
that's what she said.
Very good. But no, I mean, I'm on the same page as you. Like, the trimming it down, I wouldn't even really say is like a complaint, more like a quibble or something, where it's like, I could probably do that. But,
it's like the length didn't really bother me, but if I'm being completely objective and harsh as I possibly can, that's what I would say. I would say you could probably trim it down a bit, but that there's not like any like specific plot point or element that I would want taken out though. I'm talking about just maybe tightening a few scenes here or there. That's basically it, because like I was super into it the whole way through. I love the music. I love how it looked, how it sounded. And of course we're not quite done yet, because we do have the mid-credit scene to discuss,
which is quite a meaty scene.
It is it's a very meaty scene. It also has a really weird big cameo. I assume you don't. I assume you don't know who this is, or
I turned to my wife and I said, I think this is a wrestler. I don't know who it is, but they're giving me big wrestler vibes.
Yeah, it's Chris Jericho, whose name was in the opening titles, and I saw it and went, wait, what? What? Much like we did, we didn't do it, but we do it on Even More Screams. We talk about all the other horror movies we've been watching, and I watched 12 Hour Shift, and I talked about how Mick Foley was randomly in that movie. So Chris Jericho's in this closing credit sequence.
Have you been keeping up with Chucky?
No, I fell behind because of the trip. I've not caught up yet. I've listened to the first episode.
Yeah.
Why is there a wrestler on Chucky?
I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything. I think it's like the 4th episode though, where I just won't say anything.
Okay. That's fine. But I'll
be interested to see what you think if you watch it though, because it kind of breaks the format of the show a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
But it's in an entertaining way.
I remember when Chucky was on WCW Nitro in 1998 to promote Bride of Chucky.
Oh, really?
And he took the piss out of one of the wrestlers. But I haven't watched past episode 1 of the new season yet. So as we said earlier, the survivor of the first movie did this TV interview with a journalist, and then attacked the journalist after the interview, which was actually something you saw part of in the first movie. At the end of the film, in the mid-credit scene, we cut to the psychiatric hospital that this character is staying at. Victoria, her name is.
And I love the look of her. Like, her face is like messed up from, Art's attack, obviously, but it's like so grotesque. Like, no offense to her, but like it does look like not even human.
I mean, it's not real time. You don't have to say no offense.
I don't know. Maybe
she's not a real person.
Maybe there are people out there that look like that. I don't want to.
It might be, but like her face is not like a human face anymore. It just looks.
And like it looks like to me, it looks like a jack-o'-lantern or something like.
Yeah. So she's in her room and she starts like freaking out and like painting on the walls art plus Victoria, almost like it's like a like couples when their kids will put. So and so loves so and so. It's kind of like that, and it keeps cutting back to Chris Jericho's the security guard or the orderly or whatever in the hospital, and like the woman who's I haven't actually been able to fact check this. I tried to look at the credits and see, and I couldn't. I didn't know what the names were supposed to be, But I want to say this other orderly, this nurse who's here in the scene, I want to say that's the woman from the dream who was playing the guitar.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but I thought it was her. People in the comments can let me know if I'm crazy or if I'm just connecting dots here that aren't there. But they've got like gimmicky Halloween like food there, so it's like he's like, give me that eyeball and I'll put some sauce on it. Don't be shy. So
yeah,
it's just this really gooey looking like trick gimmicky food. But as this is all happening, the end credit scene is basically Victoria gives birth to Art the Clown's head.
Okay.
Now, don't ask me to explain this part because I have no idea. Like, I buy that he'll always come back. This method of coming back, where his like previous victim is now like giving birth to his head, which I presume the rest of his body will grow out of.
Yeah, presumably.
Or maybe it'll just get reattached to the rest of the body that's still sitting. I don't know. But I did like how Victoria was laughing as Art was silently laughing. Because she's holding his head, and the nurse is just looking in shock and horror, and they're just laughing hysterically, and that's the end of the movie.
So I think like my kind of question is like, okay, so Victoria, like, was she somehow like infected by Art, and like that drove her crazy, or like like, you know, is she still herself, or is she like some other being now? Like, is she actually in love with him, or I mean hopefully, like, you know, again, I'm assuming, you know, if the series keeps going, maybe we'll get more tidbits or something. But
you just watched the first movie again. I didn't, so you might know better than I do about her being infected. I will say though, if she's infected with another being, is it possible the pale girl's the one who's like embodied her now?
Maybe, because like her eye, the one eye that like she still has, kind of glows that yellowish glow, which I feel like the little girl had at some point, I think.
Dude, I'm only suggesting that for two reasons. One, the little girl picked up his head and left the scene with it, and then
that's true, yeah.
And then it came out of Victoria. But also the fact that when Art was seen on TV that Victoria was doing this interview, it was actually the little girl who turned it on and was watching it as well. So I wonder if like she went and like, I don't know if possessed is the right word, but if she's like going to, she went and took over Victoria and murdered the woman that got her back in this hospital, and then she's plopped out Art.
That could make sense. I mean, I think there's, you know, I could buy that as a theory,
and I don't care that it's a little girl, because it's not really a little girl, right? This is this is the embodiment of some evil thing. I don't know what it is, but it's not. I mean, I know that the little girl, like they say in the movie, that a little girl who clearly, in the same way that we're saying that Art might be the dad's body with this evil in it, it seems like this little girl's based off a little girl that Art might have killed. Or like went missing or something, like. Yeah. So I don't know. Like maybe I'm off. It's just because you said there's someone else like inside Victoria. I thought, oh, maybe it's the pale girl is taking over her. But I'm just thinking that up on the spot. That could be nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, just because it is a weird thing when it happens in the first movie, because it's like, oh, like, yeah, the character we know in the movie doesn't seem like someone that would just randomly kill like a news reporter for no reason. So. You know, unless, you know, there's some type of comment about the trauma that she went through, like, you know, if that just, you know, made her insane or whatever. Like, I mean, that could be a possibility too.
You think it's a Michael Myers thing where like the evil just spreads. If you survive him, you'll be changed by it and you'll become as evil as him, kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah.
And to be fair, like the news reporter was like, you know, being quite mean. Like, you know, she was obviously didn't have any like respect for her and stuff. And, like, you know, yeah, like, you know, she was saying all these insulting things and stuff. So, so it's not like she was just like wasn't attacking her for no reason. But I mean, you know, obviously though, shouldn't have killed her or whatever.
I'm glad you pointed that out, just in case anyone thought you may be condoning, especially since you said Ali almost had it coming earlier.
I'm sorry. It's I'm not as forgiving as you, who only cares if someone is not watching something in the right aspect ratio. Then they deserve to die.
Oh, she does deserve to die. That's a cardinal sin, quite frankly.
I like this mid-credit scene though. I thought it was cool. Again, it's weird and I have no idea what's going on, but like it's done in a very intriguing way where it's like fun to think about the possibilities versus where it's just like some annoying thing that doesn't make sense for no reason, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, and like again, I'd be very surprised if they don't make another movie, but like I'm interested to see where this stuff goes, and I hope like all this stuff is relevant and that I don't need blatant answers spelled out, but like I hope that we at least get more breadcrumbs or something to at least think about in regards to these scenes.
It definitely sounds like the people behind it want to. It seems like everyone involved is proud of what they've made, and it just ridiculously outperformed when they thought it'd be out in the box office for one weekend, make a little bit of money, and that was it, and then it'd be on Streambox, and it ended up staying in theaters for a month and grossing over $10 million. So I cannot imagine in any way, shape, or form that this doesn't get another, at least a similar budget sequel, if not probably 5 times the budget.
So I mean, it already made so much money in theaters, but then if you think about it now, like I'm sure whatever deal they have with Screenbox, they're obviously going to be getting money from that, and then at some point it'll be on I've seen ads for like limited edition steelbooks, like Blu-rays.
Yeah,
they're
doing
stuff,
a 4K Blu-ray of it, so they're going to be selling it as much as they can. Yeah.
So like they've already got like they've already made like more than enough money than they need, but then like you just add like all this other revenue that you're gonna get from it. That I mean, the thing's a moneymaker right now. That it would be very dumb if they don't jump on it to get something going right away.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the third one happening. It seems like a done deal at this point, and like I say, I expect it'll be much quicker than what this one took. Just because for the last one, this one would have been quicker anyway if it wasn't for the pandemic. In fact, that was the other little bit of trivia that I was going to mention is the alley kill is as long as silly as it is, because they actually, I think they get shut down in the pandemic right near the start of the pandemic when they were just starting that scene or something like that, and basically because they were away for months, like the director and co just kind of kept adding to it. It's like, oh well, we've got time to plan and do more weird shit with it. So I think part of the reason why it's so long and there's so many parts to it is because they just kept we'll just keep adding, we'll just keep doing more stuff.
That's really funny.
So yeah, that's actually why that scene is, in part at least, why it's as long and as brutal as it is.
So I don't really know much about the director, but is he like a special effects guy or something?
You would think he would be, wouldn't you, given the type of movie? Yeah,
because I think at some point in the credits it also like lists him as special effects by
he is that's actually the first thing that he's listed for at his IMDb is these special effects credits. So he was doing that for a while before he started making these Terrifier things. So I mean, that's, I think it's interesting because it's probably like one of the reasons why the movie like looks like so good the way it does, and like the kills are so fun and everything, because you just have like he must just have that mind for how to make things work, and can do a lot of interesting things. He's definitely making his budget go far, because it never felt like they were restricted in locations or anything like that either. It felt like it felt like a genuine attempt to try and make the most with what little money they had, and I appreciated it the entire time. Like every cheap movie that I see now that I've been reminded what you can do with no money if you actually have the skill and the talent to make use of it, I'm going to be really critical. And it's silly how bad like some big budget movies look because they just want to green screen everything, and I'm like, no, this looks better. Oh yeah, this looks better because they actually shot a movie on locations. Yeah, I wish like some movies would be forced to like sit down and watch like movies, maybe not necessarily this, but like other movies like that show you how to like stretch a budget and that like how much better things look that aren't just like green screen and whatever. Because it really is a shame. Like you don't need to be doing that stuff. Actually, that did remind me, like, one kind of funny thing, just stuff you think about more as, like, an adult who has to, look and pay mortgages and look into, like, buying a house and stuff. Like, I was kind of flabbergasted, like, at how nice their house was, and
seemingly the mom's job is just like a like call center like operator that just works from home, which I've done call center jobs and that's the absolute worst. I hate them. And actually, it was funny. Like she was on one call that like brought back bad memories for me. Like it seems like she was talking to someone. She's like, "Oh no, I can't look at your account because that's your wife's account or whatever." And I've had to have those calls where, you know, some angry husband calls in, wants to know about their wife's credit card or whatever, and it's like, I can't tell you because that's her card, not yours.
I don't know if that's specifically. I mean, I'm not really defending it because this is a common movie complaint that characters have houses that are far too big and nice for what they can afford. Like the big example that's always brought up is the characters in Friends who are supposed to be struggling 20-somethings, and they have these insanely huge apartments in New York City. And it's like, no.
No, I mean, it's again, like I'm not complaining about it. It was just more of a funny thing that I thought about at like at one point in the movie. And again, like it's an older person thing. Like you don't think about that when you're, you know, a teenager watching these movies. So it's only when you're old enough and you're working and have to pay bills that you start thinking about, like, hey, but.
The simple truth is having a bigger house is just easier to film in and looks better on camera, so they tend to just pick that instead. But yeah, it is what it is. It's not very realistic.
There's I feel like there's like one other like dumb thing I wanted to bring up. If I can remember it though.
I'm going to ask you to rate it if you don't have your point, Tim.
Just give me a second. You can ramble on or do whatever it is.
I've been rambling.
Oh, okay. I remember what I was gonna say. Just that, and again, not a fault of the movie or anything at all, but it did make me a little mad that I didn't watch this like on Halloween, because I thought this was like a great Halloween movie. Like I love that's set at Halloween, and that you have the people are around in costumes and like trick or treating, costume shops and stuff. So this is a great October watch list, which we did want to watch it in October. It's just unfortunately the timing didn't work out, and and it wasn't bad to kind of watch with the post Halloween blues. Gives you a little dopamine rush. Like, oh yeah, Halloween.
To be fair, the first one was also pretty Halloween-y as well. This one's probably a bit more because there's more of the setup for Halloween because they're getting costumes and stuff. But the first one, the two main characters were running around in their costumes at the start of the movie, and it had that sort of end of the night Halloween vibe kind of thing going for it. So it's a good Halloween franchise so far.
It's I think like if you're doing like a low budget like horror movie, like I don't know, it seems like a smart thing to do is to just set it around like some type of holiday, like Halloween maybe might be a little crowded, but like there's not a ton of like Thanksgiving horror movies or like New Year's horror movies and stuff. Like just if you automatically set your movie there and it's like decent enough, people will watch it every year around that time.
That's true. It'll become essential viewing for the season. All right, Timmy, what are you going to rate Terrifier 2?
So I mean it's it's funny, I really don't have like too many complaints. Like again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but like the length was a bit much, but like again, it's not like a big complaint, it's just like a little like quibble, like probably, but I mean other than that, the movie is solid. It was a lot of fun. The kills are very extreme and very gory, but in a fun way, like not in a I can't handle this way, but in a like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that way. And for a movie that's so long, it's kudos to them to constantly think of like new ways to do new and interesting stuff. And like I found like all the characters pretty likable, and so I enjoy seeing their story. And it can be a little bit of a risky move to try to add a lot of like mythology and lore, especially to a movie where I didn't really feel like the first one had a lot of that. I mean, maybe as we go forward, we might find like bits, in the first movie that relate that, we might have not realized at the time, but, it was a little bit of a swing, I feel like, to try to add a lot of new stuff here. But, like we discussed, I feel like, they pulled it off rather well. And it's very interesting to think about what a lot of the implications of some of the stuff that we've seen and what they mean. And I hope the series keeps going, that we get more answers and stuff to that. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8.5. I think very enjoyable, very happy that a movie that was fairly well hyped up. For me, it definitely lived up to it.
Yeah, kind of wild. We did Barbarian and then this back to back.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. I love the movie. I think Art is a great character. I love watching him do his thing, and there's a sense of humor to how he acts and how he kills people that's just really entertaining to watch. They could have given me just a copy of the first movie and I'd have had a fun time, and I'd have been probably quite positive about it. The fact that they did take that big swing and add all this stuff, which feels unique to it now feels like this is what Terrifier's lore is. It feels like this is now uniquely Terrifier. Yeah, it could have fell flat in his face. We've seen other franchises attempt to add more lore later on, and it can be quite risky. And Halloween 6 is garbage because it took away from what Michael Myers and The Shape was with what they tried to add in that movie. Whereas here, I feel like nothing takes away from what Art is or what he's doing and how much he loves doing it. And I think one of the things with The Shape and Michael Myers that I don't like them trying to add is more reasons why he's going after certain people. Whereas with Art, I never really it felt like he became infatuated and really wanted to play with his victim before he eventually killed them in the first movie. So adding the idea that he's got someone he kind of has to go after doesn't really feel like it betrays. He doesn't have this, he'll just kill anyone thing. I mean, he will. He'll do that too, because he has fun with it. But, it doesn't feel like it betrays what Art is. It does feel like he does become attached to some of his victims and wants to go after them and really play with his food, if you will. So, I love the mythology stuff. I loved thinking about it as I was watching it. I love talking about it afterwards and try to piece some of it together. I do think there's some reasonable intent behind it. It doesn't just feel like a bunch of random shit. Maybe some details don't quite add up or whatever, but for the most part it feels like a fairly strong vision and idea. And I think if nothing else, I love that this movie is unapologetically what it is, and it's not trying to appeal to everyone. It's just trying to be the best at what it's trying to do, which is this extremely gory, dark sense of humor movie with a oddly kind of in-depth mythology with a hero that maybe we can actually really root for. And on that level, I think it succeeds pretty well, and I love how it looks. I love the music, and 9 out of 10.
Wow. Yeah.
There you go. I loved it.
Pretty good.
Great. So
well deserved.
Yeah, there you go. Terrifier 2, a home run. So excellent news.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about before about how it's going to be very easy to make if we do a top 10 of the year list, definitely not going to be hard up for choices this year.
Not hard for choices, but arguing what should be the order and what number one should be might be a challenge.
Maybe, yeah. It might be a little tough, but
hey, that's a fight that you'll get to witness later on, everyone, in about 2 months or so. So, yeah, let us know what you think of Terrifier 2 in the comments. Obviously, it's worth pointing out that you get a bonus episode every month on Patreon where we review a sort of silly movie. Later this month, we'll be doing Thanksgiving, which the patrons also voted for. So, look forward to that. The $5 tier, which is just another tier up from that, you get also another monthly show called Even More Streams, which we just put out this month's edition of it, where me and Tim just talk about the different horror movies we've been watching. That weren't for the show, that were just stuff that we casually happen to watch. Plus Tim usually quizzes me, although a bit lazy in the quiz this month. I thought I'll be brutally honest with you, Tim.
I don't care. I'm not trying to make them impossible or anything. It's just they're not supposed to be actual tests of knowledge. It's more just having a little bit of fun and hopefully a springboard for maybe some topics. Or
that's I completely respect that. I respect it. But yeah,
you want some hard shit, I can give you some hard shit. Yeah.
But if you like the idea of those bonuses, you can help support the show and all the content we make at MailFuzz, including the new show, The Collector's Cut, that I started with David just this past week, where we work through franchises that are not horror or not sci-fi, because we have shows for those, but it's called The Collector's Cut, and we just started the Dirty Harry franchise. So I encourage you to check it out. I think we had a really good discussion about Dirty Harry and the time period it was made in and what the character represents and stuff like that. So if that sounds of interest, go check it out. You can get it on your podcast apps, iTunes, whatever, plus obviously YouTube. So go check it out.
So does one episode talk about one movie or one franchise?
One movie. So the second episode is the second Dirty Harry, and so on.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, go check out that. But yeah, otherwise, you can support us over at Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and get these bonuses we were talking about. You can also support us by hitting the super thanks button, or if you want to support us with no monies, that's okay too. You can just like, subscribe, ding the bell, comment down below. Of course, share us out on social media. We're at Screams Midnight on Twitter. You can get me on Twitter at Wibble89. You can get Tim on Twitter at Tim Vargulish.
For the time being, we'll see if the website is still up.
That's true. I did start a Mail Fuzz Mastodon account, which not a lot of people use yet, but
yeah, I've been meaning to look into that.
Maybe it'll take off. Yeah. I don't know. So yes, check out these things, support us, all the rest of it. All these things are really appreciated and help keep the content coming. And of course, I'll thank our Patreon producers just to finish off. Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Borden Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M4 Days. They are all our producer tier or above over at Patreon. So thank you to all of them. But yeah, that is the show. That has been Screams After Midnight. It was a longish episode, but I guess that's not a surprise given it's a pretty long movie. So thank you very much for joining us once again. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we'll see you next time.